Okay, we are live. Welcome to Dominating Your Investments, the first YouTube live stream here, testing it out with StreamYard. I have a guest on, one of my good friends, Chris Patel, and we're going to talk about this week, really this month.
I wish we didn't. To be
I,
honest with you, this is one of
it's
those
been
weeks that you
rough.
just won't forget it, man.
Yeah, it's been rough. Let's just maybe talk about what happened today, right? So I'm looking at the news articles here, and Netflix, reports earnings and goes down 22% today in one day.
Yeah.
A mega cap stock, part of Fang, goes down 22. Let's see here. Ryan says, "How am I the only person here?" I appreciate that, Ryan. As we get these
Yeah.
broadcasted out and shared, I'm sure we'll get more people in comments, but we'll also
Yeah.
post this recording on the YouTube channel itself. So Netflix goes down, and I was hearing on CNBC some of the analysts who follow it very closely, and it was the same guy. I can't remember which firm he was from, but who talked about it just like a year ago when they had a big miss on just expectations for viewership. And he even admitted, he was like, this is overreaction. The market is
Yeah.
overreacting on these things. And we're seeing this cyclical change from growth to value. As you're watching this, is this your first time kind of going through a massive dip
No,
like this?
I saw it. This is a normal part of the business cycle, right? You always have like a grandfather clock. The pendulum swings one way and then it swings another way, right? The question is how much friction is there between the pendulum swinging each way? So
Right.
one of the things is that we've had tons of liquidity. A lot of people have been jumping into growth stocks. There's other like macro effects too that I think a lot of I've been trying to figure out what the what the reason why the decline is so sharp, right?
Yeah.
Normally, the escalator and the elevator always happens when things go down. They go down really fast, like elevators, and then when they go up kind of slow, like escalators. This time around, I think it's a combination of probably algos, doing a lot of stop loss, just automatically, doing a lot of selling. Combine that with a lot of retail participation and retail. I'm sorry, we're still paper hands. When you see half of your portfolio disappear, hedge fund manager at the end of the day, that does nothing for his Lambo payments. For us, it's like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to make my next mortgage payment. So I think a lot of times we have to take that into consideration. And a lot of people were not really hedging their portfolios like they should have, and essentially now a lot of people are selling, especially people in retail that got in over the last year. They saw nothing but gains, and some of them want to protect those gains, so they're dumping things. But what I find interesting is they're dumping things that have a lot of value, which
Right.
doesn't make sense. Like one of the ones that I cannot believe is so low right now is, believe it or not, Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Some of the other ones I can understand because they're still somewhat speculative, like even Palantir. Like I know me and you are big Palantir bulls,
Yeah.
and we know that they're gonna become something big one day, but that hasn't necessarily materialized in the short term, right? But our focus is long term. Now, on the other hand, when I look at a company like Zoom, Zoom is cash flow positive. They're net income positive. They're generating $1 billion plus a year. They're still growing rapidly. They've got a
I believe
huge
it's $1
total.
billion per quarter.
No, they're generating revenue of $1 billion a quarter, but
Oh,
they're
yeah. Sorry.
generating
Yeah. That's
net
right.
income of
Yeah.
300 something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the total addressable market is just growing like crazy for Zoom. The other thing is it's becoming a default industry wide platform, right? So there's a point in every software where it becomes a default, where
Mhm.
people automatically recognize. You don't even have to tell anyone what Zoom is at this point. You're not, so you don't have to spend money on marketing and all the other things. And I think the
Let
other
me
thing
pause
is,
you
yeah,
there. I just want
yeah,
to chime in with a real world experience there. When
mhm,
someone sends me a Teams invite for a meeting, I say, "Hey, do you mind if I cancel this and I resend it out as a Zoom?" Just
yeah,
because it's so much more reliable, it's easy. You don't have anyone trying to figure out like why it's not fully working or the camera
yeah,
settings or whatever it may be.
yeah,
And so it's kind of like you're the boomer of the group if you send a Teams invite, not a Zoom.
Yeah,
So you're spot
yeah.
on with that.
Dude, I can tell you right now, the company I work with, like a third party vendor, and I dread the Tuesday morning call because it's on a Microsoft Teams meeting. And I may just start telling my, hey, listen, guys, just stop. Don't send me that anymore. Let's just do Webex. And Webex, that's the other thing too that I really like about Zoom, where I think Zoom 1.0 is Webex. And let me explain why I think that's the case. So if you know about you probably know the history behind
Yep.
Webex.
Oh yeah.
Eric Yuan, worked independently. He worked at the company Webex to develop Webex. It was eventually acquired by Cisco. Cisco fucked it up. Okay, I don't mean that they fucked it up in terms of like the product, because the product is still good, but they didn't innovate. They didn't go to that next level, and that's the thing. A lot of times with these software companies, when they do acquisitions and they pay a certain amount of money, they're thinking, okay, now that's cash flow generator. Don't, and they have that mentality of if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I think that's the approach that they had with regards to Webex. And Eric Yuan is like a dynamic CEO. He's like, dude, this is not what I'm envisioning, that it just be a small enterprise software that just does video conferencing. If you look at Zoom, what they're doing in terms of building out an ecosystem, it's crazy. They're starting. I don't know if you saw their the launch last year of like their open API for like web development and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like how they're actually now integrating with third-party applications.
Oh yeah,
And it's amazing. I can tell you, in healthcare, one of the ones that I'm super interested to see is their integration with Epic. Epic is like all over the place. I work with
wow,
Epic.
they're integrated there. That's interesting.
So literally, you can go right to the medical record number for a patient. I'm a physician. I hit, Zoom. It opens up a Zoom meeting ready to go. Once that person is there, guess what happens? They have live one-to-one conversation, but the entire conversation is transcribed, right?
We
Turned
use
word for
transcription
word.
at work with the Zoom.
Yep. And then once the transcription happens, actually the software is smart enough to pick up and helps the doctor do all the notes that they used to have to do. And I'm telling you, if you talk to any physician, they'll tell you right now, they hate doing notes. I mean, it's a necessary
My brother's
part
a physical therapist. The paperwork is actually what has him working extra hours because of all the different things that they have to make sure that they fill out after the fact.
So with this technology, I think Zoom is headed in the right direction. They're figuring it out, and they're doing it faster than anyone else. Teams is it's still garbage. They're not a big fan of it.
Let's talk about that. So a couple different points you hit on.
Yeah.
First off, if anyone hasn't gone and researched, if you're a Zoom shareholder or care to look at Zoom, haven't looked at Eric Yuan's story and his story coming overseas, having to apply for his visa 9 times to become a U.S. citizen, and wanting to make it at Cisco, and then identifying the flaws in the challenges at Webex that, hey, this is not good enough. This is not going to scale. We need something better. This is the future of video communications. And for him to leave and bet on himself, take a couple of fellow employees and raise capital with some of those fellow employees.
40 employees.
Yeah.
40 people.
And have to go through some very rigorous, rounds to try to get funding at a time when it wasn't really cool or what people were looking at. It shows a lot of the character and persistence. And then you look at the character of the culture he's built at Zoom when he talks about the mission statement of wanting his customers to have a happy experience and also his employees internally. I think it's neat that he's so focused on his internal employees just as much as he is his external customers. And you look at the NPS scores both for internal Zoom and being a best place to work at, and then the product itself having high NPS scores. You can see a huge level of execution there. And then ownership of when things go wrong, when they had the security issues with encryption not truly being fully encrypted, most CEOs would backpedal. They'd figure out something that they would say just to kind of sweep it under the rug or blame someone else. He took direct ownership and said, that's my fault. We should have covered that. We should have caught that. I'm going to scrap the R&D budget for this year. We had a lot of plans on a lot of new things. We're going to address this security issue first thing, make this a top priority. I mean, what CEOs and leadership teams do you know of that could have anticipated or even just dealt with the income of customers, the influx of their product not being designed necessarily to be battle tested for millions and millions and millions of customers to use it? And to honestly, you didn't hear anybody saying how Zoom wasn't effective or it wasn't working to what the world needed it to do. It quite frankly played a big role in the pandemic.
And actually, I think Zoom is one of the heroes of the pandemic in that it allowed businesses to operate remote, to a degree that was acceptable to most industries, right? Otherwise, and there are heroes of the pandemic that we should all, I would say that luckily we had, that were able to innovate solutions to get us to a point where we didn't have to stop as a society completely. And I think, like I said, Zoom is a big factor in that. Now, there is something that happened that I think is worth talking about, and that valuations went crazy. Right? They went super crazy to the point where it was trading almost like 500 something dollars at one point, and I was just like, I like the company, I like the CEO, but man, there is just something about the value that I cannot pay that much money for it, right? I mean, I think it'll eventually get to the point where $500 is not a big thing for them. But I didn't want to overpay upfront, right? And I knew that with the pandemic, eventually it was going to end. So at some point, people were going to be like, well, you know what? The product is not necessary anymore. Are you kidding me? You think people are going to say, you know what? I have been working from home for the last 2.5 years. I've gotten used to it. And I am all of a sudden now going to give up all the technology that enabled that to happen. Most places that I know and people that I've spoken to, they're going to a hybrid model. It just makes so much sense from the quality of life for your workers, right? From the ability to save money on travel costs, right? Because I mean, think about it. Employees right now, they used to travel so much just to get to work, everything else. So right now, even in my office, we've got it set up where 3 days a week, one of us is in the office. The other 2 days, the other 2 days, I'm off. Like, well, I'm not off, but I'm working from home.
There's two parts that you hit on there. So one, the productivity level with people who are not, who are fully remote, are glued to their work more than they were when they were working full time in the office. Let's just be honest. Like, I know that we have to be intentional in my division and in company to and like most companies and tech companies to take a walk, to get out, to separate, because now the blurred experience of work and home is gone, right? I had to get a fingerprint lock for my door, my office, because my little kids, I love them to death, but they'd come in and Zoom bomb and everyone's fine and understanding that. But to just know when to shut that off, right? The other piece that you talk about there is that I think that Zoom is critical in the fact that now with remote workforce, companies are able to get more talent, better talent globally than ever before. I would rather have someone remote who's a top talent and someone who's self-motivated and get the job done than someone who's going to just come in and be in person and he's just half there, right? So I think this doesn't go away. You also look at their results on phone. Their Zoom phone product has 100% year-over-year growth. Okay. And as you pointed out, they have a platform now, and we all know platforms are what you want, right? And why do you want that? Well, you want that because it's sticky. You want that because it's harder for high switching costs. And then all of a sudden, you start getting higher gross margins with these software products, and you get customers get more and more and more, and then you reoccurring revenue. It's a very predictable, sustainable model. Now you have to keep innovating to keep those growth rates going, but you look at what they're doing. People are still looking at this company as a video conferencing company.
No, they've moved beyond that. They've moved way
So much.
beyond that.
Do
Yeah.
you want to talk on? Are you familiar with their Zoom events and their Zoom rooms?
Yeah.
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 Why don't you talk about that really quick? And then before
Yeah.
we do Zoom.
The ability to connect not just to one like this for like, let's say you're doing sales, so you're doing one-to-one conversations, you're interfacing with clients. With Zoom events you can do like an entire webinar, where before it's like, man, I'm gonna have to book a convention space, I'm gonna have to go to the convention space, I'm gonna have to get all the organizers together, I'm gonna have to get all these people together in one room. It's just so much things that you needed to do. Now you can just host a webinar, charge, and you could charge smaller amounts because now you're not spending all that additional capital that you would have normally in booking and everything else, and just literally charge people on that. You know what I'm talking about,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
With the thing. So literally, it's just like, okay, yeah, you want to be in a lecture that normally would have cost you $500 about 5 years ago. Guess what? It's $10. But now you have the ability to have 5,000 people or even 1,000 people on at a single time, where now everything is kind of there. I think, like I said, Zoom's best days are ahead of it. I think Zoom is possibly going to be a FANG company one day. Like not the FANG company, but today's FANG, what we think of as FANG as those unreplaceable companies, right? Like hyper growth, generating cash flow all over the place. You can't live without it. It's going to be a part of our day-to-day ecosystem, whether that be for work and even from our private lives now. Because how many people are doing like events where you have like a bridal shower and some people can't make it? Guess what? Hook up a camera, there you go. Now you have the ability to do that, right? So there's so many areas where they can hit. The other thing I think is also important, and I know this is a question that some people asked me about, last week, and they said, well, how come this wasn't available 5 years ago? Like, this doesn't seem revolutionary. It wasn't available 5 years ago. And I said, well, if you think about it, the technology is only now starting to catch up with the idea. Now we have high definition cameras everywhere, right?
Yeah.
They're much, much smaller. They're cheaper. They're easily available everywhere. Like right now, I'm talking to you from my MacBook, right? And it's crystal clear. Like I now I kind of regret buying my Sony ZV-1. I mean, I'll probably still use it, but I'm like, man, this could actually be my day-to-day camera that I can use. And it happens right now where there's so many things from a technology standpoint getting cheaper and easier that I think eventually we're going to see monitors with a camera built in, so that this way you can do Zoom on it, with a directional mic pointed towards the user. Cars. You think people are with autonomous cars, they're not going to want to take a meeting in a car? Dude, I would love that. If I'm going from point A to point B, I could just hit the Zoom icon, and there you go. Now the car's driving from point A to point B, and I'm still being productive. I'm still being part of a conversation. So I think Zoom has a lot of growth potential. The other thing is there's still huge growth outside of the US that's still not really being spoken about, because that's the next phase. I think they're going to also start to ramp up a lot, as these other companies, countries, especially in the developing world, start to become, more and more like focused on technology, and it becomes more available. They're going to get on this stuff. They're going to start using it. It's not something that, oh yeah, it's only people in the US that need video teleconferencing, right?
So,
it's everybody.
So let's take the conversation. I know we're talking a lot, audience, for Zoom, but we only have 12 people, so they can suffer through a little Zoom before we get to Palantir and other things, because I don't think Zoom's talked about enough. And I had a great question here in the chat that I'd like you to give your opinion of, and then I'll speak to it as well. Sure. So Ryan asks, with the partnership and synergy with Epic and Zoom, do you think that becomes a direct competitor to TDOC? And so I'd love to hear your opinion first, and then I'll speak to that.
Yes. So let me say one thing about TDOC. TDOC is a good company. They've got, a great model, but at the end of the day, hospitals, insurance companies, they all work on networks. So what happens is, if you are looking for something outside of just an urgent care, like literally let's say I'm feeling a little sick, right? Teledoc is great for that. I could do the one-on-one, all that stuff. But if my condition worsens, I'm going to have to go to a hospital, right? That hospital is going to want to keep their own clients. So guess what they're going to do? All the follow-up and everything else, they're not going to say, oh yeah, go back to your TDOC. They're going to say, keep using us. We have the ability to do teleconferencing. So they will become competitors. And by the way, they also have it for Cerner, because I know the person, whoever's asking right now, is like, oh, well, what about Cerner? So number one right now in terms of market share is Epic, and number two is Cerner, and they have integrations with both right now. And it's only a year old, so there's still a lot of hospitals that are going to be piloting this, and it's still going to be a work in progress. But that revenue is going to be huge.
No, totally. There's a second question here too with that, and I haven't heard of that point, but going back in my hospital visits, and my hospital or my clinic emailing me about now having telehealth. I'm curious as to what they're using, because they did talk about having direct.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through your Teledoc.
Mhm.
Daniel asks a great follow-up question. Says, "Well, why does art keep loading on Teledoc?" So I'll give my 2 cents on this one. So both companies I hold are in my top 15, I believe. Now, obviously, with how things have been beaten down and my portfolio crushed, I don't know if they still are in the top 15 or not with what's fluctuated, but they were like neck and neck, right? I believe in both of them. Zoom has no debt. Well, we can take a look at the financials here in a second. And they're generating free cash flow and earnings rapidly. They went public and they didn't have to go public. They were profitable.
Yeah.
And then with Teledoc, they will be they will be profitable within about the next year or so. With how their growth rates are, 80% revenue year-over-year growth. What I do think they offer that Zoom does not is the personalized medicine with the 360 ecosystem that they've now just rolled out with Teledoc 360. And there could be multiple winners, right? But someone's going to finally put together a great healthcare app that is an ecosystem for not only the medical community, but also the customer, the end user, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to see not only my health statistics for my last visit, but I also want to see that tied to my Apple Watch, my exercise, my eating habits. I want to proactively own my health more preventatively and know that I'm doing what I can do to not have whatever health concerns, and to also by taking that initiative, I should have lower insurance, quite frankly, right? I'm doing what I should be doing to not be sick. So I see that happening in the future with personalized medicine. Then you look at gene editing, you look at gene sequencing, you look at all of these different pieces of personalized medicine. There has to be some kind of ecosystem to build that and lower insurance costs. And Teledoc is connected to most of the largest insurance companies, health systems. So I think that's why they're loading up. I also think my first initial investing thesis on Teledoc, I got in at $77 a share. And now it's almost back below $77 a share. And this was years ago. Was that, to your point, you hit on it, 3 billion people have.
Hey Dom, just a quick thing. Are you having some internet connectivity issues by any chance?
So let me bear with everyone here. We're going to go to standard definition to fix there. So, that was my whole thesis initially, was there's so many underserved third world countries that don't have a healthcare system, that don't have a doctor, let alone even in a primary physician. So that right there, I think they serve a great avenue there. I think that's why Kathy Wood's, loading up there.
Yeah.
You agree?
I agree. I think there's still that the pie is growing, right? Yeah. For telemedicine, it's growing. So there can be a world where, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I think right now Teledoc definitely has a future. I think a lot of times people think that if you're not number one in the industry, that's it. It's not worth doing anything. Like, no, that's not how it works. The industry, as it grows, you need other people innovating within that same industry. I think what it is Teledoc was in the right place at the right time to provide services for telemedicine when these other hospital systems, they didn't want to do that. I'll tell you right now, hospital systems are not on the cutting edge when it comes to adapting new technology. Well, at least they weren't 5 years ago. They're always concerned more about the patient. So anything that they they're going to look at it from like a patient care lens. They're going to say, well, how does this affect patient care? Like, how can we make it better? The other thing is, with the advent of telemedicine, they didn't want people to stop coming to the hospitals because the amount of reimbursement that you get for an on-site physical visit is a lot more, so that's the other thing too that you have to take into consideration. So I think hospitals, they've invested so much money in building out infrastructure and everything else. They don't necessarily want that to go to waste either. So I think right now people are going to be using, in my opinion, a hybrid medical approach where they're going to have like your local hospital. If it has teleconference abilities, you're going to be able to use it, right? And you're going to be able to get all your stuff. Like, what just for the sake of argument, what application do you use for your medical care right now? Like, like that your hospital is affiliated with.
Yeah. So it is. Where's my phone? It's called Follow My Health. It actually syncs up to all of my.
Hey Dom, is it me or is it you that like I'm seeing like a lot of like the connection problems? Like, should I rejoin? Let me
just get through on this one, and then
let's see.
We'll power through while you're working on that. So it does have all of.
I'm sorry. Let me just rejoin really quickly.
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. And so for who we have here in the chat, just want to make sure we answer all of the questions. So I saw Mr. Slicks talk about getting in at 1370 average. And if that's your average for Palantir overall, that's amazing. I was just answering questions while we're getting joined back in. Mr. Slicks had a 1370 average for Palantir today. And I said, if that's your total average, cost basis, that's amazing. I know. And I said, if that's your total average, whoop, we got some echo there.
There we go. No. I just put the stream also on my screen, like on YouTube on my phone. So this way, because it's weird, like what's happening is your face is like freezing and the quality just drops.
Gotcha. Yes, you can see it. Okay, cool. So let me see some other questions here. Ryan says the Livongo acquisition is a great move as well. I would agree with that. It looks like they overpaid for it now, but I think it'll all pay off in the long run. I love what he says. Second part, though, I see mental health care via web video will become vital in the future. I could not agree more. When they rolled out their mental health segment and their product there and part of personalized Teledoc 360, I think that's such a good area to grow into. And then let's see here. Oh, it looks like it's my camera connection, just FYI. So I don't want to reset because then I don't want to lose anyone. So we'll just see if we got 30 more minutes. So we'll just keep it going here. Lesson learned, right? First time fail.
I think it's your bandwidth. I don't know if you're hooked up.
Well, yeah, I might not have done hardwired. And I thought, well, I turned wireless off, so now it should be working fine. So we'll see.
Yeah, it is. It's coming across good now. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Thanks, Ryan, for the comment there. So Daniel asks, and we can switch off of the Teledoc and Zoom conversation, but I don't know if you hold Teledoc both. I think they'll be fine. Both have been bludgeoned. You know, looking at my portfolio and wow, just to see how much is lost. But the good thing is I've been through this. I've been through several crashes. It's like, well, normally all stuff off. I'm willing to look at it. Now I'm interested in stuff. I've now stuff. It's a little more painful when you look at it every day. But I haven't sold anything, won't sell anything. It is what it is, and I'll hold it for 10 years. I told my dad to do the same. I'm actually managing his retirement now. So
yeah. Hey Dom, I think it's becoming kind of like unbearable because it's literally like I'm looking at it, and so it's really bad. You gotta, yeah.
If I log
It's
out,
almost, yeah. It sounds like you're on like dial up.
are you kidding me? Okay, hold
No,
on.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh man, it's not good. It's not good. The people will
Hey, it's all
never.
right. It's our first stream, dude. That's how it is, right?
The people will never come back.
Nah,
Let's
I
see. Let
think
me
this.
try this.
Yeah.
All right, is it better? Abort. Ryan, am I okay or am I bad? Do I need to just log out and shut this off and start a new one?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, dude.
Okay, it's bad. Okay, it says my connection is unstable. Okay.
Say, Dom, you're a Martian.
Okay, all right. We'll see about I'll end the broadcast, I guess, or I can log out. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I think you have to end the broadcast and then restart it. Or
Okay. All right, we'll see. So for the 18 people that are there, I'm going to repost on Twitter and rejoin the broadcast there. So sorry.